Welcome to another edition of the College Basketball Net Profit Show, Wednesday, December 14th. Ian Cameron and Conor Mack ready to break it down for a Wednesday in college basketball. It's our last show of the week, by the way. We're off tomorrow and Friday. The slates are just too small, too miniature to even warrant having a full 1 hour show. So we'll be off tomorrow and Friday, but we will be back on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. Me, Conor, and Dabby Cab for the Saturday edition of the College Basketball Net Profit Show. And it is a big card on Saturday. So we will still have the Saturday morning show for you upcoming this weekend. Conor, let's get into the Wednesday card. It's an interesting one. We're going to start with Ohio taking on Florida here. And note that this game is in Florida, but it's not in Gainesville. It's not on the Gators campus. This is a neutral floor. Tampa Bay, home of the Lightning, Amalie Arena. We've got Florida here, 13-point home favorites, 143 the total in this game. Florida off since their loss against UConn, 75-54 last week. They haven't played since then, a full week to prep for this game. I would expect them to have a pretty good performance in this game and fully expect them to win this game. The question is, do you want to lay 13? Do I trust Ohio enough to hang within this number? We've seen on the road they've had some puzzling results. You know, they nearly beat Michigan in Ann Arbor at the Chrysler Center earlier this season, but they also lost by 14 points on the road to both Marshall and Detroit. So they've had some really bad performances as well, this Bobcats team on the road. Certainly they're well coached, but I don't know if Ohio's shown me that level of consistency that I'm used to seeing from them. Florida might be chomping at the, no pun intended, chomping at the bit here to get back on track here after the loss against UConn. So I don't know if I'd lay the points with Florida, but maybe a first half with Florida might be worth a look. I could see them having a strong start. Maybe they get a little complacent with a big lead, but I think you're going to see a good first 20 minutes out of them. First time hitting the court since that blowout loss to UConn, which is no shame in doing that because of the fact, you know, UConn's obviously been an excellent team. I do like the total, though, in this game. I'm probably not going to bet the side. Florida first half is just a lean, but I think this game could see enough points to get over. Ohio's not going to mind pushing the ball. Florida's playing a lot quicker this year with Todd Golden as the new head coach coming over from San Francisco. So I think the total can get there over 143. Conor, what do you think here? Ohio, Florida?
Yeah, this total is a little interesting. It's come down a couple points. I think if Ohio's in it, though, you lean more over. Because if they're not, this could be like the Florida 78-54, and that would keep this game under if they don't score. But one thing, if you like Ohio, which I kind of do here, I lean with them, is I don't think Florida's great defensively. Yeah. You know, I think they're like 208 or something like that in the country. They'll be able to score on Ohio. But I think Ohio can get theirs in the end. And they're just kind of a ho-hum team. They do nothing great, really. You mentioned that close game with Michigan. They lost by 14 to Marshall, beat Youngstown. Definitely a step up. Florida's got to be pissed off after getting their ass whipped by UConn. So, yeah, maybe that Florida early if you like them to come out. But in the end, I'm off, but I lean the points with Ohio if I had to go full game.
Yeah, I like the by the way, they're going to have the backcourt healthy. They've been battling injuries here the last few games. Golden's pointed that out. They've really worked on getting more ball movement, player movement in the offense to open up good looks, better looks in terms of shooting the ball. We'll see if that work and practice after the UConn loss shows up in that regard. It's kind of like why I like the over. I think Florida will have a good offensive game tonight, but at the same time, you're right. Ohio, is capable here against this Florida defense, which has kind of been up and down. Kyle Lofton and Will Richard, who have been banged up, are both going to play tonight. Obviously, the backcourt there for the Gators. So that's definitely big news for them in terms of this game tonight, having those two on the floor. All right. Next up, as we continue along here, we've got South Carolina and UAB. UAB laying a big number here, 16 at home, 144 the total. I think in past years, you'd be interested if this was such a point spread. You'd say, oh, my gosh, we got to take South Carolina, right? But this is nowhere close to any recent South Carolina team. They have not been obviously very good this year, 5-4, but you look at the 5 wins, and I don't know if they've really beaten anybody of substance or quality so far this year. Maybe Clemson you consider a halfway decent win, but they were life and death to beat South Carolina State. They ended up beating Sacramento, South Carolina upstate, and then Georgetown. They squeaked out an overtime win, and then their last game they did win and cover, but that came against Presbyterian. This is going to be one of their toughest games of the season by far for a team that's had their schedule come up a little bit light. Let's also keep in mind that we've seen this South Carolina team lose by 24 at George Washington and get absolutely boat raced as well by Furman, 79-60 on a neutral court. And Furman is a nice basketball team, but UAB is on a different level than that. I think this probably could get ugly for the Gamecocks in this game. I actually did lay the points with the 15.5 here with UAB, and I love the spot too, right? It's only their second loss of the year, losing to West Virginia, 81-70. And yes, we've talked about how UAB, at times the defense has been leaky. The Toledo game, they struggled again defensively against West Virginia in that game on Saturday. But you look at South Carolina, and this is a team I think they should be able to corral and neutralize. Even this UAB team, which again has had some bumps defensively, I don't think it'll be tonight. This South Carolina team is ranked 330 in the country in terms of field goal percentage shooting the basketball. And you talk about free throws, they're dreadful, 62.5% shooting free throws, South Carolina. And then you got UAB, that's one of the better free throw shooting teams in the country. So that's why when you're looking at these big favorites, there's a huge free throw discrepancy. That can show up. That could be like 8 or 9 plus points going to UAB just because they're a great free throw shooting team and South Carolina is horrible at the charity stripe. So I'm laying the doubles here with the Blazers in a big bounce back spot after West Virginia. I think you'll get their A game tonight. What do you think here, C-Mac?
South Carolina just has been a little bit puzzling so far this year. And you're right, they're slow. They don't score a ton. They beat Georgetown, who's not very good, but that win over the Blue Hose by 11. They got drubbed by George Washington, Furman. They beat Clemson. I don't know. This is just UAB. I take them early if in this one. I think they could cover the number. Defense, that's just when you lay points like this. I always worry about it, when you start reaching this number, but they should win here pretty easily. Walker should go off as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like that. Definitely looking at UAB, maybe first half too, if you're so inclined. All right, Depaul and Duquesne. We've got Duquesne 3-point home favorites, 148 the total in this one. Pretty interesting matchup. Depaul is one of those teams. They're 6-4. I don't really know how good this team is or bad, for that matter. I don't know if they're good or bad right now because they've been all over the map in their results so far, and that truly is the case. I mean, they beat Minnesota in impressive fashion on the road. And then they turn around and they lose as 2.5-point favorites on a neutral court against Santa Clara, 69-61. They lose by 16 against Texas A&M. We're terrible defensively in that game. And then they also have a nice road win against Loyola Chicago, 78-72. They beat up UTEP in their last game. But then they also have a brutal game at St. John's last week, 86-67. So they've really been all over the map here, DePaul. Right now. And, the Duquesne Dukes, 7-3 so far this season, 6-2 straight up at home. Now, you could quibble about their schedule. It's not been great other than playing, I would say, Kentucky on the road. Colgate was a decent win for them, but I get it. The schedule's not been the toughest necessarily for Duquesne. They're off back-to-back home losses here to Marshall and New Mexico State. I get the sneaking suspicion, though, that, look, they're off those back-to-back home losses, and yet here's Duquesne. They open a 1-point home favorite, and they're up to 3, which tells you the betting markets don't have a whole lot of trust right now in the DePaul Blue Demons. And I think that could be for reason here. It's gone up a little bit. Would I want to lay 3? I don't like it as much, but I did like them money line when this line opened. It was closer to -125, -130 Duquesne money line. It's up to 50 now because of the line movement, but I don't trust DePaul here. I'd take Duquesne before DePaul. I lean over the total as well. What do you think here, Seam?
DePaul, up and down. It was with this team, through their number, like you mentioned. It's just like, what team's going to show up? That's why I lean them. I guess Duquesne's still here at home for another game, and they, lost the last couple just to New Mexico State, which we'll get to later. I lean the points, though, with DePaul. I think if they could just try to contain Grant a little bit, I think they'll be able to score. So, yeah, DePaul here. I haven't bet it yet, but I'd be on them +3 before I'd lay even a short number with Duquesne.
All right, next up, we've got App State, Wake Forest. Wake Forest, 12.5-point home favorites, 142 the total in this one. I mean, if you're Wake Forest, you're not going to be in a good mood, you would think, in theory tonight. after what happened at the end of that game Saturday, taking on LSU. You had a 20-point lead. You end up losing 72-70 on the neutral court, and following up that 20-point loss at Clemson. I lean Wake. I think, but I still like this team long term, but there's issues with them right now that I am concerned about with their inability the last few games to hold leads. That's concerning in my opinion. App State, the one thing about App State is it hasn't been pretty. The schedule's not been great. Beating Louisville doesn't hold any sort of cachet anymore because Louisville's just absolutely pathetic. So beating them is no longer impressive. They beat Southeast Louisiana. They beat East Tennessee State. But they lost by 4 to Furman, 9 at Charlotte. It's not been a team. It's not been an easy team to beat by margin, if you know what I mean. Now, Wake Forest is going to be one of the tougher opponents that App State's faced. But the bottom line is this App State team, it's been difficult to beat this team by a big margin. And can we trust Wake Forest? Even off 2 losses in a row now and a brutal collapse against LSU, can we trust Wake as double-digit favorites to take care of business here, play 40 minutes of good basketball against a team that hasn't been a team that's been blown out yet this year? That's the question. That's a great game to talk about. I think Wake's sitting on a good performance here, but I've lost my confidence in them has been shaken enough that I'm not going to lay 12 tonight with the Demon Deacons. What do you think here, C-Mac?
I mean, this it seems like first half or just nothing with Wake Forest. And that, I don't even remember what the score was. They were up like 20. They gave up the last 8 points right before half, which
you
was
knew that
huge.
was going to turn momentum. Yeah.
Yes, that turned it for LSU. Then they came out and they didn't play great defense, and LSU shot it well from 3. Wake didn't, especially in the second. They could seem like they couldn't hit a shot at all. I worry about them defensively, so I don't want to lay a number with them full game. And App State on the other side, they just want to muck this game up. They want to play slow defense, try to get some turnovers versus Wake. Talent-wise, Wake here should win. I just think the numbers are a little too large. I can't lay it right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, and I love Wake. I do. But I'm at the point now where I've lost a little faith in them. I took them against Clemson. They got drubbed. Weren't even in the game. And then I'm feeling great. Up by 20 against LSU last Saturday. Can't even close that game properly. So, yeah, no, we're taking a break from Wake Forest. Maybe down the road they get their shit together and we get back on the Steve Forbes Express again, but it ain't going to be tonight after these last 2 games. All right, next up we've got Miami, Ohio, Cincinnati. Cincinnati 15.5-point home favorites, 148 being the total in this game. I kind of like these situations where, you've got obviously Cincinnati. They've played pretty well, 6-4 straight up, 5-1 at home. They're off, though, that big game against Xavier. They fell short, 80-77, a very intense down-to-the-wire basketball game there. That could be trouble here in this game, trying to, rebound from that. I always like to fade both of those teams, honestly, Xavier and Cincinnati, when they're off that big rivalry game. And this is an in-state game, little brother versus big brother. It's Miami O, which is, honestly, Miami O is not very good defensively. That's the concern you've got for them here in this game. But they are not bad offensively. They're pretty good shooting the 3. Cincinnati's been mediocre defending it. And we've got a free throw situation here. Again, we're talking about Cincinnati, 66% from the free throw line. Miami O is number 2 in the country. Free throws, 82%. I mean, you don't get that very often. A team that's 80+% from the free throw line. You get that with Miami O. I think they hang around inside this big number. I like the Red Hawks here, plus 15.5, plus 16. I think the game might trickle over the total as well in this one. What do you think, Conor?
It's a lean for me. That's what I wanted to touch on. I mean, crazy how well they've shot it from the free throw line. When they stepped up in some of these games, they got beat down by Indiana State. Indiana, Marshall took it to them. Early on they lost by 7 to Georgia when I was going through everything. I just, in the end, it's a lean with the points. Some of those games they've just got their ass whipped. So yeah, I lean the 16.5. I'm definitely not going to lay it. Cincinnati wins though here.
Absolutely, definitely. It's again, there's no doubt Miami's been a little shaky in terms of their results, but they definitely are in a plus situational spot here. I don't think that's the case here for Cincinnati in this one. All right, next up, we've got UCF and Ole Miss. We got the Ole Miss Rebels, currently 6-point home favorites in this game, 129 the total. pretty much across the board in this one. UCF, this is actually going to be for the Knights here. 7-2, they've played pretty good. It's their first true road game, though. They have not been in a true road environment yet this season. I think that's important to point that out. And while they've gone 7-2 this year, they lost to NC Asheville in their first game. They lost to Miami. And then you could pretty much say everything else was a weaker team that they've played. I mean, they've played some really weak competition so far. Tarleton State was a pretty decent win, but still, Tarleton State's, a nice little hardworking, good defensive team, but a little bit outclassed sometimes. Samford, Miami Miami has been up and down. Evansville's terrible. Oklahoma State was probably the best game they've had this year. They did find a way to win that one. We'll see if they can hang in this one. Ole Miss on the other side, they're coming off a big blowout win at home against Valpo, following losses to Oklahoma and Memphis. We'll see if they can keep it going here after that good performance. I mean, 6 looks reasonable to maybe lay the points with Ole Miss. I do have a small look toward them in this game. I've got my questions about whether UCF. The one thing about UCF is when a team's going to harass them and the opponent's going to bring pretty good defense, pretty good length, pretty good ability to close off the rim, and Ole Miss can do that. UCF's not the kind of team that's going to light it up consistently from perimeter, and they might be relegated to that by this Ole Miss defense. And if that's the case, I think it's going to be hard for them. I lean under the total as well. I think it's going to be hard for points to come by in this game. What do you think here, Conor?
I think so too. I was a little puzzled why this number has moved up on the total a tad bit. I mean, Ole Miss at times, maybe it's their last few games. The Valpo game, they could get in the 80s. They scored 98, I think it was with Valpo. But UCF wants to slow this down. I think they're like 350 in tempos, and they're down below and everything. So they'll really, really slow it down and try to control this game. But UCF, more points. They don't shoot it that well. Ole Miss doesn't really either. Ruffin's back. He had 14 the last game. They kind of distribute all around for Ole Miss. So nothing on the side, but I'm with you. I'd only be on the under, and this has moved up to 130. So it's a bit shocking. So under or nothing. And when these teams have got together, it's gone under as well.
Yep, I agree. Like the under here as well. Georgia State, Auburn. We've got Auburn 20-point home favorites, 135.5 the total. So normally when you get these situations, right, you got a pretty good Auburn team that just lost their first game of the season against Memphis over the weekend, set 82-73. Usually I like the better team to bounce back, and maybe I'll lay the points. But, Georgia State on their best day, they can be very capable. Now, they've been kind of up and down so far this year. The last game, I can't explain what happened to them. Northeastern, 66-46 loss. We know this Georgia State team's been capable, but this has been a team that consistently, they've been good on the road. There are 7-1 ATS their last 8 road games. They've been very good when playing above average, better competition on the road. Perfect ATS in their last 7 against teams with a better win percentage over 60, which Auburn is. Georgia State's got a better game in them than they showed against Northeastern. They could not make a shot in that game. They simply could not. And this is, I think, in my opinion, a better offensive team than they showed that night against Northeastern. On the flip side, they're not a bad defensive team either. This Georgia State team. And the one thing, too, when you're facing Auburn is you got to be more concerned with them scoring inside. And Georgia State's field goal percentage defense and their 2-point defense has been a little bit better. I'd be reluctant to lay this many here in this spot with Auburn tonight. I think it's a lot of points. And after that first loss of the season, when you've gone this undefeated, this deep into the season, you lose that first game. It's not always an immediate bounce back the next time out. So, again, Georgia State's been up and down. But I do have a bet on them plus 20 in this one. What do you think, Conor?
That is a ton of points. The big deal here with Georgia State, like you mentioned, they couldn't hit a shot. And they've struggled throughout the year. They need to lean on their defense here. Yep. And Auburn's just way more athletic. But, yeah, this is a lot. To me, I lean the points with Georgia State. Like you mentioned, been solid on the road. It's just big step up here. But I think they could maybe keep it close. So I lean the points as well in this one.
All right, Cal, Riverside, and Oregon. We've got Oregon double-digit favorites here in Eugene, and the total 135.5 across the board here in this matchup. Really, we've seen evidence of Riverside playing 2 teams, I guess, somewhat comparable to Oregon. Creighton and Colorado on the road. Well, they lost both of them by 16 or more. They lost to Colorado by 16. They lost by 29 to Creighton, a Creighton team that's suddenly struggling a little bit as of late. And Oregon, don't look now. Oregon is starting to pick up their game. And maybe Dana Altman is not going to wait till February to get this team to improve. Remember how awful they were just about a month ago? Look at the difference here, last 4 games. They beat Villanova on a neutral, win and cover against Washington State. And that's a game I lost betting against Oregon because I thought they were, still struggling. I didn't trust them. But their defense is getting better. Their offense is starting to shoot the ball better. Both ends of the floor are coming together for them. Beat Washington State, win and cover at home. Hang tough, lose by 9 at UCLA, a pretty competitive effort there. And then Nevada at home in their last game, 8.5-point favorites, 78-65 over a pretty solid Wolfpack team. And it's been good to see. I mean, Will Richardson's been excellent, shooting the ball better the last few games. Quincy Guerrier for the Syracuse transfer has made a big impact in recent games. The defense, like I said, has picked up a lot for Oregon the last few games. I'm laying the points with Oregon tonight. I think Riverside's outmatched. I think Oregon's defense has picked their game up considerably the last few games. It's a Riverside team that offensively it's hit or miss with this team. I think that could be significant here going into this game against Oregon. And another thing that does concern you about Riverside here in this matchup too is just how good the Oregon, again, inside the arc, how good that 2-point defense has been lately. Could make it more difficult for Riverside here. So I like Oregon here, laying the points against Riverside in this one. Conor Mack has bounced out for a sec. We'll get his thoughts on that game when he comes back. In the meantime, we'll move on to Western Kentucky and Louisville. We've got Western Kentucky 7.5-point road favorites, 132, actually 134.5. The total's been bet up a little bit here. I mean, why overthink it? Why overcomplicate it at this point? Why? I mean, Louisville's that bad. There's clearly no point spread that has caught up to just how bad and pathetic this team is right now. They're 0-9 straight up, 0-9 against the spread this season. They haven't covered a number yet. I mean, why change things? Fade Louisville, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm laying the 7 here with Western Kentucky and the Hilltoppers. Western Kentucky will sometimes struggle to win by margin. I guess that's the small concern you have. Wright State, 7-point favorites. They won by 4. 8.5-point favorites at Austin Peay. They win by 1. So there is that concern. Is Western Kentucky going to have 40 good minutes here and strong enough to put this game away, put this sorry Louisville team away and win by a big margin? I still say they will because, again, the point spread, you would think by now, 9 games with Louisville being this bad, that the odds makers have caught up to how bad they are. They're going to start pricing Louisville like it. They still haven't because Louisville is still getting destroyed by the point spread. Look at these margins of defeat with the point spread. They are losing to the point spread by 11, 18.5, 10, 12, 15.5, and 12.5 in their last 6 games. They're not even coming close to the point spread, Louisville, in these losses. They've already been downgraded. Their power rating has dropped like a stone all these games, and they still aren't sniffing a point spread cover. They're still getting beaten to the point spread by double digits. Like they're losing to the spread. Never mind the actual game score. They're losing to the spread as big underdogs by like 12, 14, 16 points every game. The betting markets are still not even close to getting Louisville right in terms of how pathetic, how sorry, how inept they are. It's everything. They can't shoot the ball. Their point guard play is about as bad as I've seen. They don't stop anybody. They got a horrendous coach. Kenny Payne has no clue what he's doing with this group. The apathy toward Louisville, the home games, it's like empty seats when you see a Louisville home game. So there's no home court advantage here. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Give me Western Kentucky here and dare the odds makers to finally price Louisville the way they should. And they haven't been doing that. What do you think here, Conor? Western Kentucky, Louisville.
Yeah, you kind of nailed it all there. I'm not going to back Western Kentucky, even though they are the better team. Should go in there and win. They've had a few bad games throughout the year. They had a good, beat Tulane by 6. They're not a crazy team to, win by margin. But hey, Louisville, like you said, I mean, this team hasn't won a game. They haven't even covered. So there's no way I want to look at them. So this game, I'm just off in the end. But I wouldn't be shocked. It's going to happen soon. Louisville is going to finally win one or maybe even cover a game. Real
Yeah.
real quick, the real quick on the Riverside that I missed.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I kind of lean Riverside. They've just struggled when they stepped up. Well, I've noticed that the last few years when I bet them. Earlier they lost by 16 to Colorado. Or somebody else they lost to, Big Creighton, like you mentioned. But Richardson's really took over this team for Oregon. I mean, first triple double they've had in over 20 years. He was huge that game against Nevada. Tough one. I just wish I had a few more points with Riverside to get on them. So I lean them, but I haven't bet it.
Yeah, there we go. Good stuff indeed. All right, next up we go to probably the game of the night. It is the game of the night, I think. UCLA and Maryland. We've got Maryland 1.5-point home favorites here, College Park, and the total 142. And basically the line's going in both directions where I bet it. I like Maryland. I like the over. I'm not convinced UCLA or Maryland's better than UCLA, but you have to factor in the situational here that UCLA is going coast to coast, west to east. And I've seen UCLA under Mick Cronin, Conor. They've had some losses when they make these big, long road trips to the East Coast against pretty good competition. So, it really wouldn't shock me to see Maryland win. They're 5-0 at home. They beat a very good Illinois team, 71-66 at home. Oh, and by the way, that was an Illinois team that beat UCLA head-to-head. Earlier this year as well. So I like Maryland here to get the job done at home. They've impressed me quite a bit this year, and they impressed me against Tennessee because they could have lost that game big time. They fell behind early, and they kept battling back. They made that a competitive game. Dante Scott, Jameer Young, Hakeem Hart, Donald Kerr. I like this group quite a bit for Maryland. They're good at the offensive end. They're relatively good at the defensive end, more than relatively good. They have excellent defensive numbers. They're 27th in the country in both field goal percentage and three-point defense going into this game. I think they've got the type of players that could really harass Tiger Campbell, Jaime Jaquez, and some of those great UCLA players. They've got good athleticism, good defensive numbers, good length, home court, UCLA cross-country travel here for them. After playing Denver at home over the weekend and not covering. And by the way, don't look now, UCLA has failed to cover 3 of their last 4 games as well. So making the long trip to the East Coast here, I think Maryland at a pick'em's the way to go. I think we should see just enough points as well that we could get over the 142 in this game. What do you think here, Conor? UCLA?
Let's touch the total real quick. It goes over. UCLA's kind of gone over when they played, I believe, Baylor, Illinois. Both teams are good defensively. The thing is, will Maryland hit these shots? Because the last few games, they've struggled. The Wisconsin game and Tennessee, those teams have good defense, but 53 and 59, oof, is rough. They should be better here at home and shoot a little better. But I lean the other way on the total. I lean the under in this one. I think it'll be tight, and I think it just stay under this total. I thought it was a tad high. UCLA needs a big win. They play Kentucky next. Can they get it here? I'm not so sure. Maryland should be pumped. That place should be rocking. After this game, they have a couple, St. Peter's and UMBC before they get into conference play. So this should be huge. I'm with you. I took it at 1. I know it's moved a lot of them. There's a few 1.5s, 2s. I think Maryland wins here in a big game at home.
Yeah, I mean, this should be a big – I know this is a big game for Maryland. So I know they've got full focus on UCLA. And UCLA should look at this as a big game, a good opponent too. But then they also have, as you mentioned, Kentucky coming up. And you wonder that if that's the game that they're even not more excited about. But, they've got 2 big games that they've got to get ready for on this little stand here. And Maryland's got this one to singular focus on. And like I say, they beat Illinois at home. If they beat Illinois at home, they can beat UCLA at home. And Illinois beat UCLA. Let's also keep that in mind in Las Vegas
I think so too.
this year.
And real quick, if they're not completely on offensively, I think that defense can make some stops and, win this.
Yeah, it should be a good game. Looking forward to that. It's definitely one of the, it's a light hockey slate. There is some NBA, but this is definitely something I'll be watching tonight, UCLA and Maryland. Could be a good game. All right, we got 2 games left for marquee games, New Mexico State and St. Mary's. St. Mary's 13-point home favorites in Moraga. The total 129.5, but it's been bet down to 128.5. I agree with the total going down. Should be low scoring as we expect this to be. 2 very good defensive basketball teams. I think, again, though, St. Mary's, there's a little bit of an issue, I think, in terms of their point spread value right now, because they're 8-3 on the season. But, you look at them lately, it hasn't been necessarily that same great point spread team that they were early on. They did get the big win against the Aztecs in their last game. They're laying a big number here. But, New Mexico State, for a very long time, they've been so solid in the underdog role and getting big points. And you look at already this year, 2-point dogs against on November 25th against San Diego. They win 90-77. They were 7-point dogs against Santa Clara. They lose by 1. They win outright as dogs at Duquesne. That's what New Mexico State tends to do. They have a pretty solid defensive team. They keep things relatively close. I mean, they're not 9th in the country in terms of 3-point defense. And this is a St. Mary's team that could really get you with their perimeter shooting. St. Mary's can shoot the 3. New Mexico State can take it away because they're 9th in the country right now with 3-point defense. So I think we've got a low-scoring game, and I think we have a game where the dog can hang around a little bit. I like the 13 as well with the Aggies of New Mexico State. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yep, so do I. I took 13.5 with New Mexico State. We know it's going to be low scoring. St. Mary's is better a little bit. They are at home. They want to slow this down. But I think with Penson, Washington, Muhammad, these guys can score enough and keep this game close enough. I just thought it was a little too large with the St. Mary's team. So I agree with you. I took the 13.5.
All right, we like the dog. We like the under here as well. All right, the final game on the marquee game slate, and then we'll talk about games that Conor and I both like tonight on the card that we did not talk about yet. Long Beach State, USC. We've got USC 12-point home favorites here, 146.5 at the Galen Center, of course, in LA. USC, 3 straight wins for them, although only cover was at a lowly, pathetic, offensively challenged Cal Golden Bears team. They come back home. They face Oregon State, life and death to win, 63-62. CS Fullerton, 64-50, failed to cover in that game. And now they welcome in Long Beach State, who, at times they've had some head-scratching results, with their season. They got drilled by UCLA. They had a loss to Montana State, 70-57. They lost to North Texas by 21 on a neutral court. They lost by 10 at Utah Valley, lose by 2 against Sacramento State in their last game. But they have had a consistent history. These two teams play each other pretty much every year in non-conference play. And Long Beach State has a consistent history of giving USC a tough time. All 3 losses the last 3 years by 11 points or less against USC. USC hasn't won a game by this kind of margin against Long Beach State. These are always games that Long Beach State usually gets up for. Like I say, we've seen this from Long Beach State before where they start playing well late in the season. I remember last year, they stunk early in the year. And then we got to Big West Conference play, and then they just went on this crazy run straight up, and you were basically made money every time you bet Long Beach State. Once they got into conference play, they were just lights out. And maybe it's going to take them a while for them to get going. But I think tonight you get a good game out of Long Beach. Now, their worst game is bad enough that they could get blown out here, but their best game could be good enough to hang around, just like they have the last 3 years they've played USC. They've hung tough with USC. They've lost by 11 points or less in 3 straight meetings since 2018 against USC. And I think you're just getting a few too many points here with Long Beach State in this game. Yeah, their offense has been a little shaky. Their defense has picked it up, though, the last few games. This is not a terrific offensive team so far for the Trojans. They've not always put it together. Hell, they haven't gotten out of the 70-point mark in 5 straight games going into this game tonight. So I think Long Beach hangs around. I'll take the 12 here with the Long Beach State 49ers. What do you think here, Conor Mack, Long Beach State, USC?
Yeah, at times the last few years they've played them tough. They've been up and down a little bit this year. The Beaches, like 21 to North Texas, they got ripped by UCLA, but beat Vermont big. They just lost by 10 to Utah Valley. I kind of lean over in this game. It's moved that way a tad bit. Yeah. I think it's going to be right around this number. I have a feeling. So I haven't bet it. I'm probably going to be off, but I wouldn't mind the points with the Beaches. In years past, I liked them at home better than the road. I know they had a shit game at home first against North Texas, but SC's lackadaisical on defense. They can hang around here.
This is a good one. A late night, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific here on the Pac-12.
And this is a game we should mention more. Like these late games, look live to bet because it's later. I know on the East Coast, but this is where I try to catch teams. Same with the NBA and live bet these games because you get good numbers.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know if I've asked you this before. Do you like being in Las? Do you like the fact that wait a minute, all the sports is over by like 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night at the latest in Las Vegas, whereas on the East Coast, everything's going still to 1 a.m., 1:30 a.m., 2 a.m. even sometimes. Do you prefer having the real late night games like you would here on the East Coast, or do you like that? Hey, all the sports is done once we get to 10 p.m., 10:30.
Yeah, I'm good with it. I like it in Vegas. I know nothing else, so but I wouldn't mind it, I guess, if I lived on the East Coast.
Yeah, see, I could go both ways. Like if the sports are over in Las Vegas by like 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m. local time, you could have a night on the town in the late night hours, and I don't have to check scores because everything's done. So that's a nice thing. But at the same time, I kind of like having shit to watch at 1 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah. I feel you.
There's still sports going on. You got those USC games, those Dodgers games, in baseball, the San Jose Sharks, LA Kings games in hockey, whatever the case may be at 1 a.m. And I get to watch sports that late. So I like that element of it too. So to me, the bottom line is there's pros and cons to East Coast versus West Coast living as a sports fan.
Definitely.
The con for me with the West Coast is I hate the fact that my NFL Sunday starts at 10 fucking in the morning. I hate that.
Yeah, there's a few things, I got to get up real early on college football, basketball too. So that's just what it is.
I mean, I always hear that argument. What's it better to live on the East Coast or West Coast when you're watching these sports? And I'm like, there's good and bad to both. There's good and bad to both, in my opinion. So there you go. All right. Q&A. Get your questions in the chat if you have any. In the meantime, Conor, Mac, any games that we haven't talked about that you like?
Well, we touched on most of them, I think. What was another one here? I kind of like Nevada. I know UC San Diego, but I was looking more at their team total in that game. I wish it was 74.5, 76.5, but I think they roll there at home in that one. That was about it. We got New Mexico State. I bet that. I also looked on the extra board a little bit at Bowling Green, plus 4.5. I haven't bet that one either, but I think they could keep that game close. That was it. Oh, Stetson, Charleston, over 146.
Yeah, I like that.
I think we see points there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. I have got that one in.
Oh my gosh, look at what we've got here. This is remarkable from our guy Dale Lowenstein in the chat here. $50 dono super sticker. Oh my gosh, we appreciate that very much. Thank you for the dono. We appreciate that. Did we get rid of the dono train? Jose, if the dono train's here,
you gotta have the train, man.
Let me see. Is it still here?
That's a big show thing, unfortunately. I'm sorry. I'll make my own dono train.
All right, good stuff.
It's there, though. You might be able to find it.
All right. Next time. That's all right. Next time. But we appreciate it, Dale. $50. That is awesome. Great stuff. For the real big donos, we'll still do it like that. And that $50 warrants it. But we appreciate it, Dale. Thank you very much for the support. And thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us. 142 live viewers. Hit the like button. All right. The games that I like that we did not talk about here yet on the show. Actually, you know what? We hit a good amount of the games that I did like. There's not too many for me as well. Radford. I like Radford plus 10.5 against VCU. I think it's a good spot maybe to go against VCU here. Radford's a pretty decent team. Their best game, I think, can hang within single digits of VCU. I like the Radford Highlanders there getting 10.5 against VCU in that game. I'm with Conor Mack on the Stetson Charleston game. I like the over there, 146.5. I'm on the over in that Bowling Green game that he mentioned against Norfolk State. I still don't love Bowling Green in terms of their consistency defensively. And same thing goes. Norfolk State can probably get up and down the court. I lean with his side, BG, plus the points, but I like the over there, 144.5. I'm on Queens and East Tennessee over. Queens is a team I've bet a lot of overs with this year, fast-paced team. Nothing on the side. I kind of lean ETSU as well. I don't get why everybody is loving Queens that much in that game, especially on the road, but I still prefer
it just seems like it seems like a tough spot. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
In that game where like I know they played well, but if that was 4.5, 5, I like them maybe. It's just kind of tough there.
Yeah, I'm taking Pine Bluff as well. It's ugly. They're not that good, but Minnesota laying 17 right now just to anybody. I can't buy into that. I know Pine Bluff, it's rough. They are a little bit of a, you talk about how tricky it is to trust and back Minnesota right now. It's equally tough to trust Pine Bluff. I mean, they've been 0-8 on the road. They've had some ugly games. They just lost by 45 against Texas in their last game. They got drubbed by 28 at Air Force. I get it. They've had some ugly games. But Minnesota can't be laying 17, in my opinion, right now. And a flat spot, the Big Ten conference schedule's coming up for them after this. Yeah, I'll take a shot, hold my nose, and hope for the best with Pine Bluff there, getting 17 against Minnesota. And I'm on the over in the Tennessee Tech Lipscomb game as well, over 146.5. So there you go. It's my card right there for tonight. All right. Any games now from the Q&A? Anyone asking for games that we have not talked about yet? I'm just looking. I don't think so. Because Bill McDonald asked about Queens, and we just talked about that. Oh, Seton Hall from Justin.
Yeah.
Seton Hall, I think this is a spot they could absolutely shut down Drexel. All right. Drexel is not a team I trust to score the basketball against a good defense. And Holloway just hasn't gotten it fully consistent and going yet with Seton Hall, but this is a spot where this could be the opportunity for Seton Hall to beat the hell out of somebody. I leaned to the Pirates, but I didn't bet it.
Me too. They could. It's tough to take these dogs. We talked about it earlier on some of these
Play
teams.
14 with a low total in the 120s. Yeah.
Yes, Drexel's got to make shots. And they've just been hit and miss. If they do tonight, they could probably cover this number. If they don't, they'll get their ass whipped.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely lean with you, Justin, on the Hall, but I pumped the brakes. I still got to see more from them offensively before I'm comfortable laying 14 of that magnitude with them. All right, Louisiana Tech from Ty Jen. You're right, we didn't talk about that one. They're facing Stephen F. Austin. Louisiana Tech, it's a team that this year I haven't been enamored about trusting them at times, but they are 6-3. They are 3-0 at home. So we'll give them that. I think the one thing you look at in this matchup against the Lumberjacks, and the thing that actually has me leaning to Stephen F. Austin a little bit in this game, is the fact that Stephen F. Austin could rip apart Louisiana Tech from three-point range. Louisiana Tech's not a good perimeter defense, and Stephen F. Austin's been good shooting the three ball. You can actually say the same thing about the other side of this battle. Louisiana Tech three-point shooting is pretty solid, and Stephen F. Austin's been miserable defending the three as well. So it actually maybe points to an over in this game, yet they're betting the hell out of the under here, 149.5 down to 144.5. I'm not sure I agree now. I think at 144.5, there's value the other way. Both teams shoot from the perimeter nicely, and neither team's good defending it. So I think the over now might be worth a look.
You got to think Tech is going to bounce back here too, a little, like play better after just getting drubbed against Wyoming.
Law Tech, yeah.
Law Tech, maybe first half. And also, I agreed when I saw 149, I thought under, but this is crashed. So interesting to see this tonight on that total.
Yeah, it's just a simple handicap. You got two teams that rely on shooting the three for their offense. They both can, and neither one's been good defending the perimeter this year. So it makes sense now, I think, over 144.5 in that one. So definitely, and like I say, Louisiana Tech is 3-0 straight up at home, and they're only laying 4.5. So, and they are off a bad game. I expect a better efforts. That's what's got me off the side in that game, because I had leaned Stephen F. initially, but going to stay off it now. All right, great stuff. All right, we got best bets coming up. Thanks to everyone. Oh, Sam Houston from Noli. We got to get Noli's question. And Sam Houston and UL Monroe in this game. Sam Houston, they have a team I've backed a couple of times so far this season. 7-2, 2-2 straight up, 2-2 against the spread on the road. Monroe hasn't been great so far this season, but at home, they've been a little bit better. They haven't played anybody, though, in the 3 home games. And every good team they've played, that's been halfway decent, they've lost badly. And I mean badly to them. And you've got Sam Houston off a 65-51 road loss against Oklahoma State, and then they lost by 18 at Nevada. This is just one that's very difficult to wrap my head around, because Sam Houston laying this many on the road feels like it's a lot. But at the same point in time, ULM is a below-average defensive team. I don't necessarily love them at the offensive end either. And then you look at the rebounding numbers; they're ugly in favor of Sam Houston's. They're good for Sam Houston. They're ugly for ULM. So this could be layup, put back opportunities for Sam Houston. So that would probably lean me slightly toward laying the points with Sam Houston rather than taking Monroe, but not enough for a wager, in my opinion.
That's how I felt. If I had to, I think Monroe's that bad. They are at home, it's just tough. And I think Sam Houston just comes to play with their defense.
Yeah.
They could get 70, but I don't think Monroe scores, maybe 55. So I'd still lean under, even at 130.5.
And don't forget, Sam Houston State on the road beat Oklahoma and beat Utah earlier this year. Sam Houston State.
Mm-hmm.
So they're capable. I mean, they absolutely could go on the road here and just drill Monroe. I mean, you want to hear who Monroe beat in their they've had only 3 home games this year, and the teams they beat, probably a lot of people have never heard of them before. Dallas Christian, Central Baptist, and Champion Christian. Who? Yeah. who? Those are the 3 home wins here for UL Monroe this season. So good luck thinking that's enough evidence for you to trust them as home underdogs tonight. Not for me. All right, good stuff. Awesome show. Oh, Wright State, Akron, Nunya. Akron lean. I think Akron's underachieved. I think Akron buy low because I don't like they haven't been consistent, but I think they're good enough that they could win that one by upwards of 9 or 10 against Wright State. So I lean to the Zips a little bit there.
You might be right. That one was tough for me. The Wright State shoots it well. They could be in it. I wanted a few more to look their way, 8.5, 9.
Yeah.
So I stayed off.
Yeah. I actually do have a small bet on Akron, but again, the number I think has changed since I got it. I got Akron at 6. Well, it's only gone up to 6.5. It's still a small bet. I think it's warranted on the Zips here in this game. It might be I think it's a tricky matchup for Wright State too, because you look at the way it works for them. I think they could have some troubles in terms of that defensive matchup tonight against Akron. All right, great stuff. Hit the like button. We appreciate it. We'll wrap the show up. We'll wrap the week of shows up here on Net Profit, coming up with best bets right after we hear from Manscaped and Southtown 101. Southtown 101, when you're in San Antonio, Texas, stop in. Great food, drinks, live music, DJs, karaoke. Southtown 101 and manscaped.com. Promo code PubSports. 20% off your purchase, Lawnmower 4.0 or anything on the website. 20% off and free shipping using the promo code PubSports. And yes, I will touch on that briefly before we get to best bets since it's being talked about. Do not bet LIU versus Albany. Do not bet that game. You cannot lay 9.5 with Albany, or at least I can't, or 8.5 with Albany. They're bad. LIU Brooklyn's worse, and I cannot endorse them either. Just don't bet that game, please. That's what yourself. I have to say about
don't
that.
Bet it.
Yeah, don't bet that game. All right, best bets here to wrap it up for a Wednesday. Conor Mack, what do you like for best bet?
Let's give a couple. Maryland -1.5. I think they get the win. And the cover. There's still 1.5s out there. Go money line if you want to be safe. And New Mexico State +13.5. I think they have enough scoring to just keep that in the number against St. Mary's.
All right, there we go. Conor Mack there for best bets here on this edition of the College Basketball Net Profit Show. All right, my best bet here for this one. A lot of good choices here in terms of best bet here. Let's go with 2 West Coast games. Let's go New Mexico State +13.5 is actually, there are a couple books still with the 13.5, and Long Beach State +12 against USC. I like both double-digit late night West Coast underdogs. New Mexico State +13.5 against St. Mary's, and Long Beach State +12 against USC. Let's go for a 2-0 sweep. I figured it's our last show of the week. Let's give you 2 best bets instead of 1 since we're off tomorrow and Friday. There you go. 2 best bets for me on this Wednesday college basketball card. All right, that'll wrap it up for this edition of the College Basketball, a Net Profit Show. Thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us. Hit the like button on the way out. We appreciate it very much. We will be back Saturday. Remember, we're off tomorrow and Friday, no shows. We'll be back on Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, me, Conor Mack, and Dabby Cab to get you ready for the massive Saturday college basketball card. So join us Saturday morning for that. For Conor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Wednesday night, a great rest of the week. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we will see you again next time on Saturday morning for another edition of the College Basketball Net Profit Show right here on Pub Sports Radio.